champion. Welcome, Danny Batten.
Number one. You win.
Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Danny Batten Fight Show. This is episode number 71 and we'll be talking the latest MMA and boxing news, plus of course last night's fantastic UFC fight night, including two top level performances from a couple of the UK's highest rising talents in the world. And we'll also be talking to another top guest from the combat sports world, which I'm very excited to do. As usual, you can get the video version of this show and all the other shows we do at A.C.E Podcast Nation, youtube.com/A.C.E Podcast Nation. Please click that subscribe bell, click the bell for notifications. You get a message every time we upload or we go live. And you can also get the audio versions if you prefer your podcasts, should I say, to listen. Just search A.C.E Podcast Nation at your favourite podcast or radio platform, and away you go. You could also ask Alexa, just say A.C.E Podcast Nation, and she will bring up over 400 shows on various subjects. So there we go, moving with the times and the technology, as it were. A.C.E Podcast Nation, of course, you're home to many great shows and series featuring top guests, expert analysts, and more. So on that note, let's introduce those top guests and expert analysts, or at least we will, but let's introduce Danny first. Former Cage Warriors champion, MMA legend. It is Mr. Daniel Batten. Welcome, Danny. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm all good. Can't wait for tomorrow. As everyone will probably know, gyms are opening. So, yeah, bring it on. Let's get back to some kind of normality.
Spot on, mate. It's been a long road. It's been a long road. So I'm sure our guest is happy about it as well. And I'm delighted to welcome ex-professional MMA fighter, finished his career with a record of 10-6-1. He's fought in Cage Rage, Cage Warriors, and many others. He's the owner of Trojan Free Fighters, Mr. Paul Sutherland. Welcome, Paul. How are you, mate?
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. Well, thanks. I hope you two are great as well.
All good, mate. All good.
We are good.
Looking to having a chat. But first and foremost, I want to talk. We're going to get to the UFC last night. Look, I'm very excited to talk about it. We've had friend of the show, JAck Shore, had a blinding performance. Also had recent guest, a new friend of the show, Arnold Allen, blinding performance. It was superb. It was a very, very good card with a lot of really interesting fights on it. I was very interested to see what Kevin Holland did in the main event after his Brunson fight the other day. I thought he did quite a lot to redeem himself to a certain degree, at least with his kind of body language and being a bit more with it and a bit more urgency to his game. Look, his striking is very, very good. His jiu-jitsu is very, very good, but his wrestling defense particularly it needs work. But there's potential there, Danny, isn't there? And I thought he did a good job of maybe just showing that the Brunson fight wasn't, the best Kevin Holland.
Yeah, he definitely was taking this one more serious. But he does seem to have been found out with a chink in his armour, and that is really the takedown defence. I mean, you just summed it up, really. He gives away his hips too easily. He's got to start making more of an understanding of the basics of MMA, because that's really what's MMA wrestling, which is really what's missing in his game. He's striking high and just leaving those hips gaping, and he's quite tall in division, so they're going to go and tackle in at his hips and his legs, and he's giving away that time again. He's got to address it, but his striking looks fluid. He has some spells off his back, but he really not ought to be fighting off his back at all. He should be really keeping it striking, but we'll see what happens in the next one. But he can't keep losing. That's 2 in a row now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Paul, we're going to talk about this in a bit more detail a bit later. But it does seem with Holland that he doesn't mind getting taken down from a wrestling point of view because he's so confident in his jiu-jitsu. But as we've seen in the Brunson fight and this fight last night, doesn't matter how good his jiu-jitsu is, if he cannot defend the wrestling, because he's just getting mauled as soon as he's taken down, and he's been taken down pretty easily, really.
Yeah, I think personally, I think to start off with, I think it's a footwork and a distance management issue that he has. Because
Yeah.
the way I look at it is your footwork and the way you control the distance, and then your wrestling defense kind of like kicks in after that. But if you can't control the distance and you're lunging in on shots, then you're giving your hips away all the time. So I think that kind of needs addressing. And again, that's MMA wrestling, isn't it? Obviously, from the stand up, it's your footwork, controlling the distance, the way you're on the cage, getting your back off the cage, circling out instead of throwing, when you get your back to the cage. I think it's just things like that he probably needs, obviously, as well as addressing his wrestling. To be fair, I mean, I think he's a great talent. Um, I also think that his jiu-jitsu is pretty good. And if you look at when he was on his back, he wasn't taking that much damage. So his actual defense from a jiu-jitsu standpoint from striking isn't too bad. I think he just, obviously, there's a blueprint of how to beat him. He just needs to take some time, go away, and maybe go to another camp or something, and obviously shore it up. But I'm pretty sure he can be, really, really dangerous in that division if he does shore that up.
Yeah, there's definitely something there, and like I say, we'll get back to that. One thing, or one of the news bits I want to touch on, Danny, is they announced. We speculated last week on where would they put Zhang Weili next, and she is defending her title versus Rose Namajunas, and Rose Namajunas wasted no time in making it quite personal when she commented on. She said, I'll quote her so I don't get it wrong. She said basically she doesn't hate Zhang Weili, but also made it very clear that Weili doesn't represent her because she's a Chinese champion, and she'd rather be dead than red. In is what it is, I suppose. Like, I'm assuming she's referring to kind of China and communism and things like that, which politics don't always mix very well with combat sports, let's be honest. But that's interesting routes to take, because Zhang Weili has proven that she is an absolute killer in that cage, and Rose Namajunas has shown, or there's been certain fights where she's taken a couple of big shots, she has crumbled a little bit under pressure from the fight, I mean.
Yeah, it's surprising that she's taken us through. I don't particularly like it when things that should stay outside of the fight game get brought in somehow, in some way. I think politics and people's opinions as such, there's a timing for that, and I just don't think it suits the sport very well, bringing things like that in. To me, you're two combatants that you're fighting strategy against strategy, physicality against physicality, mind against mind. All the other things, I don't know, it just has no place. I just like cracking on with the fights itself. I know sometimes you get fighters, they get a little bit personal, mention about family members and so on and so forth. I kind of get a bit of that banter, but yeah, I'm surprised she's gone down that route, to be honest.
Yeah, and that phrase, better red than dead, or better dead than red, sorry, is literally a slogan that was used in the Cold War in the 1950s, which is, like, I don't know, in 2021, do we need to be going down that route? Probably not. But also, purely from the fight point of view, I was interested that they put this fight together, because if you remember last week when we were talking about the different ways they could go with Zhang Weili, I said, like, the Rose fight wasn't my preferred direction, and the main reason behind that is, look, when Rose Namajunas overcame, I think it was Joanna Jędrzejczyk, when Joanna was really personal about her mental health and stuff in the build-up to the fight. And I remember, when Rose beat her, I was so happy. I was really, really, really on her side, and really, it was one of those moments where I was like shouting audibly at the TV as she won the title. I just can't see her beating Zhang Weili. Now, that's no disrespect to Rose Namajunas, because I don't see many people beating Zhang Weili, but like I said, she wasn't my preferred option, shall we say. how do you see the fight going? Like early doors, obviously we'll do a proper preview closer to the time, but just first impressions, how do you see it going, Dan?
I think, well, he's going to keep winning each round, and I think each round that goes by, she'll start winning more and more dominantly. It could be stopped at any time as well. She's got that kind of power and tenacity and skill about her, and so well rounded. I just can't see Rose really finding a way through. It's a real uphill struggle for her. But who knows? The women are really improving exponentially. Each time we see them fight, they're coming with new levels, new equipped attacks. So, we can never write her off completely. But, if I'm going to be pushed to go either or way, it's got to be with Wan Lee. She's just so impressive.
Yeah, for sure. Paul, how do you see that fight going? And how impressed have you been with Zhang Weili as well?
I'm impressed with both ladies, to be honest with you. They both put in really fantastic performances. I think this fight is going to be a little bit tighter than what people may think. I think Zhang Weili has the power edge, but Rose has got, good boxing, good finesse behind her technique, and she has got a really good coach in Trevor Whitman, who is a master at game planning. So I think they'll probably have something. They'll work her game plan very, very well for the fight strategically. I think it's going to be close, though. I'm really looking forward to it. It's a really hard one to pick for me.
It's going to be a cracker. I really can't wait. They also announced, Danny, the full lineup for UFC 262. Now, I'm going to read you this lineup, and what I want you to do, or both of you, is I just want you to pick out 2 fights each that you're really looking forward to. Doesn't have to be the main event. Can just be one that you think might be a bit of a banger or a bit of a sleeper. So you've got the main event for the UFC lightweight title, Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler, Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards, Tony Ferguson versus Beneil Dariush, Ronaldo Souza versus Andre Muniz, Shane Burgos versus Edson Barboza, Jack Hermanson versus Edmund Shabazian, Caitlin Chikagian versus Vivian Agiro, Antonia Shevchenko versus Andrea Lee, and you've also got, I'm picking some of these out now from the pre-shows, we've got Jamie Pickett versus Jordan Wright, Lando Venata versus Mike Grundy, and Rafael Alves versus Damir Ismailyov. Paul, we'll go to you first. What fights out of those stand out for you, mate?
Well, obviously the lightweight title fight is going to be a great fight. Michael Chandler's come in 1-0, obviously former Bellator champion, and Charles Oliveira is on fire at the moment. That's a difficult one to pick again. Chandler, pure grit. He's got all the power, but Oliveira is absolutely fantastic, and on the ground he's so slick. So that one is going to be really, really exciting to watch. And then probably I like Edson Barboza and Shane Burgos, because their fight's not going to go to the ground. They both like to throw down. They both in exciting fights, So I'm looking forward to those two mainly. But it's a fantastic fight again. They're absolutely killing it in 2021,
Yeah, they're making these cards so deep as well. Danny, what about you, mate? Anything stand out for you?
Yeah, I think Paul's summed up the ones that I'm ultimately interested in, but I think I'm going to be curious to see how the name's just bloody gone out my head.
Which one?
Oh my
Leon
God!
Edwards, Nate Diaz.
No, near the top. Keep going down.
Ferguson Dariush.
Ferguson. That's it. I'm really curious to see what Ferguson's going to do, because I think if he has a bad performance this time around, I think we can all safely say he's just tipped over the edge. Whether it's his age or whether it's his mind gone, who knows what's happening in his personal life. I know he's a bit of an unusual chap, but I'm just kind of curious whether he's ever going to get himself back into relevancy. So that one I'm going to be watching with interest, really. Just to see who comes out. I mean, who's going to show? I don't know.
Yeah, another one I'm interested in is I didn't read it out actually. Is Gina Manzani versus Priscilla Cochero. One of the reasons that interests me is Gina Manzani was recently fired from Disney for her, I think it was her political views or something like that. She was working for the Star Wars TV series, The Mandalorian, and there was a lot of pressure on the UFC to cut her because, as is the world.
Wasn't that Gina Carano?
Wasn't
that Gina Carano?
I apologise.
Yeah. I was going to say it
straight away to Gina Manzani. I got my Ginas mixed up straight away. Woof! I apologise. I'm going to cut that out. Don't worry about it.
But that is an interesting topic, though. Nevertheless, it's quite. That's happening a lot now, isn't it? People with their views.
If you say the wrong, if you say stuff that's super offensive, then it is what it is. If you work for a company like Disney or the UFC or whoever, then chances are, if people, you're gonna get cut because they're publicly traded companies, and every employer, every company, if you work for them or you represent them, they have a right to decide if what you're saying is going to affect their brand. But for me, there's a very thin line between kind of censoring people having an opinion and offensive. I don't know. If you're gonna go around spouting a load of racist stuff and a load of homophobic stuff, then you deserve to be fired and on your bike. That's because that's just stupid. But if it's things so this is not in Gina's case, Gina Carano's case, but just as a general example, I think there is room for comedy which walks the line, like stand-up comedy which walks the line of being offensive, and the whole point of being a good stand-up comic is that you, as you're telling a story or a joke, it seems like you're going to go over the line, but at the very last minute when you do the punchline, you're skirting on the right side of it. But the problem is these days is if you say anything which is near that sort of line of what's offensive and what's not, social media and things, and if people decide that they don't like what you've said, regardless if it's particularly offensive or not, if they decide they don't like it or they're offended by it, it can very quickly snowball into this person doesn't deserve their job or their platform, and their employer gets emails and posts, and it can snowball very quickly. And I don't know, I'm a big believer in people being treated like adults, and if you're going to say something stupid, then you've got to live by it. And also I'm a big believer that there's context to certain things. Now, as I said, racism, homophobia, bigotry, things like this, there isn't a context to that. But there is a context to, for instance, I used stand-up comedy and stuff like that. I think comedy has got very boring in the last 5 years because everybody's so scared of saying the wrong thing. Apart from Ricky Gervais, I'd say he's the only one who doesn't seem to care. But that is because he made his money before you had this cancel culture, for lack of a better term. So if he was to say a joke at the Oscars or whatever he does, and people decided that was the one that went too far, he joked about a celebrity and that's too far, it wouldn't really matter because he's made so much money that he can go and sit at home for the rest of his life and enjoy his life and his money. I don't know. It's not an MMA subject, and it's a subject which has got a lot of nuance to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it over to Danny and let Danny tie himself up in bigger knots than I just did, and we'll go from there.
Look, there's some certain subjects that are very, very hard to comment, very, very hard to debate about. Now, in our gym, when we finish training, we debate about all sorts of things, and probably things get said that you probably can't put on a public forum without getting, a lot of other people's opinions come at you in a really strong negative way. But there is a cancel culture now, and it is such a touchy subject, and it's a subject that, in terms of being out in the mainstream, I think most people want to avoid these days, unless your particular type of personality seems to relish in that. I don't relish in arguments, but I do relish a nice debate, and
Yeah.
I don't mind anyone having their opinion if they give good reasons to have their opinion. I don't like people having opinions about anything, and it's just a hollow opinion. I like people to back up the reason why they have their views, and I'm willing to respect anyone's views on that front. I think things can be said both tastefully and distastefully, but unfortunately, to some people that are perhaps more sensitive than you or I or anyone else is, they can take offence to things even when you are trying to do it tastefully, and that's where the difficulty is. Where's the line? And that's why comedy's taken such a hit. Where do you draw the line? I mean, if it's done with tongue in cheek, does that mean anything goes? Well, personally, I think not anything should go.
No.
But by the same token, I've enjoyed comedy throughout the decades. I mean, I'm not a young man anymore. I'm a man of 47 years, so I've seen all sorts of comedy. But I've got to say, the comedy perhaps I experienced as a young lad, watching my parents watch certain comedy, I do think it's kind of distasteful now. So whether that's because I've become sensitized, I don't know. But some of it is distasteful when you think back. I mean, wow.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dan.
Yeah.
Funny you should say that. I recently started rewatching Only Fools and Horses, and
Right.
so I've watched them in order. And in the original TV series, so they did like 2 series, didn't they, of TV, and then they did like after that it was like specials, like 1 or 2 a year.
Yeah.
And the specials are all very good, but the actual TV series, there's a lot of jokes and things that are said which were acceptable then. You would never get them on TV now, and rightly so, because they're not acceptable. But it just shows the difference in like what was deemed acceptable then to now. And I think the things for me which have changed generally around what language is acceptable and stuff like that is a good thing. By far is a good thing. But also, I one of my favourite quotes, or one of my favourite things, is whenever someone says, "Oh, it's I've got the right to say this horrible thing that I've just put on the internet." But also, yeah, you have got the right to say that, but I've also got the right to call you an absolute dickhead for saying it, and also got the right to pull you up on it for saying that horrible thing, or that thing which is just you're hiding behind X and Y to disguise something bigger, being transphobic, or whatever it may be. It is a difficult one, so I'd like to ask both of you, just to move the kind of subject on. You're both obviously big parts of gyms, and those gyms have got fighters in, and they're growing all the time. If one of your employees or one of your fighters or whoever it may be, someone linked very clearly to your gyms, said something which was was deemed offensive or unacceptable by the masses, and you were barraged with a lot of emails and social media posts saying, "Oh, Paul, so-and-so from your gym has said this is unacceptable, you should fire them, you should sack them, you should do this, whatever, they shouldn't have a job." How would you deal with that?
Let's go to Paul. Don't put me under pressure on this one.
Okay. Each situation is different, obviously. A lot of things. I mean, I have a cross section of cultures and religions and people that train in my gym, and we really don't really go there on touchy subjects. We just go there, train honestly. Everybody's all friendly in the gym, and we kind of like keep it that way. If someone, makes a comment on the problem is social media, actually, in my opinion, because a lot of people can put stuff on social media and it can be interpreted a lot of different ways. And it depends how you read it. Someone could say something quite innocently and someone could take offense by it. That's why one of the reasons why I'm not on social media too much, apart from promoting my gym. I never sort of promote any like thoughts or beliefs or anything like that, because obviously everything can be sort of angled a certain way, however people want to sort of read it. And I tend to try and stay away from people who are deliberately argumentative and combative. People like that I just literally delete off Facebook or, Instagram, whatever. I just don't need that energy in my life. So
Yeah,
if
yeah,
anybody is like that, then I generally try and sort of steer clear of them, because that's not what I'm trying to promote. Obviously, I teach a lot of kids as well, so obviously we're supposed to be role models for these kids.
Yeah.
So the last thing I would want is to be arguing with someone on social media, where like a lot of my kids, see these type of things, and so you there's a role model, aren't you? So um, that's the way I live my life as well. If someone's like got bad energy, I just tend to just stay away from that sort of person and just stay with really positive
yeah.
people. As well as like, obviously things that's on TV. Obviously, I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. I'm like 50 years old, so I've obviously seen society change. Things on TV that I used to see in the 70s, obviously, you'd never get away with now. Um, but it's just the way society's going. But I think a lot of problems that we're having in the world is down to social media. People got nothing better to
I
do but
totally
Yeah.
agree.
either
Yeah.
argue and
Yes.
poke and be argumentative with people and just combative. And it's all about doing that, obviously, when you're sat at home. And I mean, I see a lot of it, just changing the subject a little bit, with fighters who may have fought in the UFC and they might have lost, and you've got all these people attacking them on Twitter, saying you should have done this, you should have done that, you're crap, and it's just like you'd never say that to their face.
Yeah.
It's just sickening to me at times. So I just try and steer clear a lot of
Yeah.
things like that in my
It's
life, and just try and move forward with the positive people.
Yeah, I can fully understand that, and I think I'm the same actually. And funny enough, literally today, I was messaged by someone who I'm not going to name, but someone who is who watches some of our shows, not this show, but one of the other shows, and he was talking about something, and as he was talking and he was agitated, he threw in like a racist comment, and I was so shocked. I was like, "Oh, mate, that's not going to fly. I'm not down with that at all." And I was really shocked by it. And I said, to be honest with you, I'm kind of ready I don't really want you to watch the channel and the show, and I really was really shocked by it. But the reason I bring that up is because like we've seen so much recently of athletes, footballers, fighters, when they lose a match or a game or a fight, whatever it may be, you see that they get so many DMs on Instagram, particularly where you can DM anyone, just of like racist and homophobic abuse. Like, I hate to think how much these prominent people get, how many messages and things like that they get on a daily basis, because I've had a little bit of it, and I've got a very, 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 very small platform. Nobody knows who I am, and if they do know who I am, it's because of the guests that I've been very lucky enough to have on my various shows and the channel. And I just cannot imagine the amount of messages that these people must get, and it must be so difficult to not respond, and to not respond with anger. So like for me personally, I don't respond. I just, if I get a message like that, or I see people behaving in a certain way, I just block them, remove them, and I move on. Because I, like you, Paul, I've got children. I know there's some sort of kids and teenagers who watch some of my shows. I don't want them to see me arguing with people on social media, whether even if what I'd be arguing for would be considered the right thing. I don't think that it's a great, it's not a good look, is it, if you're kind of going back and forth with someone on social media. And by the way, we only got onto this conversation because I mixed up
Because you got it wrong.
Gina Manzani and Gina Carano.
Yeah.
I don't mind having
I was
these
going to say,
conversations, but
Paul, this subject's just come about by chance. He was not brought on just for this subject alone.
But like, it's all my fault. I apologise. But let's move back to the fighting. It's yeah, I've been really I'm completely thrown now. But Aljamain Sterling, he's having neck surgery, which means his title rematch versus Petr Yan has been delayed, which is
Oh wow. Okay.
that's really disappointing. And obviously with neck surgery, as you guys will know, and as I know from neck and back surgery, even though he's going to be hoping to fight again, you just don't know what that
Mm.
neck's going to be like after a surgery.
Was that from that fight, or
I will
do you
find out
know?
in just a
Was
second,
that
but
training injury, wear and tear?
so look. So
Yeah.
the rematch
While we're on the
between
subject of injuries,
go on.
how's your body doing, Paul? Because we're not young men anymore, are we? And yeah,
Oh, not great, brother. I've had two knee surgeries, hip replacement. My neck is gives me problems a lot, these days.
yeah,
I've got two dodgy knees still, but
yeah,
I wouldn't change it for the world. It's part of the journey, isn't it?
yeah,
What
yeah,
about
yeah.
yourself?
And you, yeah, my body hurts. I actually don't know how old
Yeah,
you are, but I know from your generation fighting, you're out of your competitive years. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
50.
You, you're 50. Wow, you're doing amazing. Okay, I'm 47.
Yeah,
And, yeah, but I find the
yeah.
things that trouble me the most are my wrists. I've got swellings on my
Okay.
wrist after I train, and so even when I do jiu-jitsu, someone tries to sweep me, I can put my hand out, and it's absolute agony. I've got calcification of my ligaments that run over my joints, and it's just
Okay.
Painful.
awful. I do have two loose knees. I've got split ligaments in my knees, so that when someone picks up, say, a single leg, and they start dragging me about, I feel my knees sagging. It's more of a sensation than it is a pain, but then that can play up with my cartilage, and can get swelling in my knee, and then I'm out for another couple of weeks. Yeah, it's not fun getting old. I'm still pretty active, although I have
Yeah.
slowed up in the last couple of years. But I'm still quite active. I'll still will jump in and do MMA rounds, but not always with the top guys anymore. Certainly not people a lot heavier than myself. I'm finding I'm steering more towards the BJJ. I am even more so than even the no-gi now. Whereas I was always considered perhaps a no-gi specialist in the big scheme. I'm loving the gi. I think maybe because the pace is slower and it's just more predictable. I don't know about you. Are you finding because I know obviously you're quite heavily involved with the BJJ as well as the MMA. Is this something that you
Yeah.
find you
Yeah.
trying to do sparring?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't sparred like MMA for years now. To be honest, I've just kind of like removed, like with all my injuries and stuff. I've kind of like removed myself from that type of stuff. I generally just train in the gi now mainly. Um, and I'm quite selective of who I train with. I train with mainly brown and black belts, to be honest with you, because obviously they
Right.
can control the pace a little bit and they understand
I
that you
get
are
you.
injured as well, on certain things. Obviously, when you've got like a 20-year-old blue belt full of testosterone and he's like trying to kill you, it's a little bit different, So, but I like yourself, the gi, I find the gi a lot easier because I can slow the pace down in the gi with my grips and stuff,
Yeah.
Whereas no gi, obviously, the grips change and it's a lot faster pace. But
Yeah.
generally, my training consists of BJJ and the gi with certain training partners, and then I just hit mitts and stuff, just to keep sharp. And then I do my bits of lifting and stuff like that. But I
Yeah. Yeah.
haven't done any sort of impact sort of MMA sparring for
Sure.
years, really, and I can't see myself going. I'm too old to get punched in the head these days, so
Yeah.
I just tend to sort of sit on the sideline and guide the guys.
Yeah. It's definitely easier just handing out the advice rather than being in there. I'm definitely finding out. I'm like I said, I've been
Yeah,
slowing up the last couple of years, and yeah, I'm just steering towards the gi more. Obviously, I'm just as heavily involved in the MMA regards to my coaching. And on that note, you've been involved with coaching at a really high level. You've got some great competitors that under your guidance. Obviously, you'll have a big set of amateurs coming up through the ranks. Who we got to look out for? Have you got some people that we're going to see coming into the mainstream of pro fighting, and also who's already on the pro scene? Is there anyone ready to break through, maybe UFC or Bellator or something along those lines?
um, I've got quite a small squad at the moment. I mean, quite a few years ago, probably 5, 6, 10, like up to about 10 years ago, we used to have guys who were like in the gym who were in the UFC and Bellator and stuff like that, and our gym was absolutely packed. We had every weight class, I had like nearly 30 pro fighters, at one time.
Yeah.
But obviously things work in cycles. People either leave the gym or they retire or they get too old and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a second sort of generation that I'm bringing through now at the moment. So I've got a lot of young guys on the mats, a lot of amateurs, obviously a lot of kids that I'm investing my time in as well, which you'll probably see them sort of like in the ranks in sort of 5 to 6 years time. Obviously, I've had the two Figlat brothers who just competed on Cage Warriors, the last trilogy show. So they're two lads I've been training since they were teenagers as well. So they're doing really well.
They look very, very good.
They're both sharp and they train really hard. I've also got people like Mario Said, who fights in Brave. And I got quite a few of other guys who fight just domestically on the regional shows, and a few guys who are coming up from having amateur 10 amateur fights going up into pros now. So I've got one of my guys who's a flyweight, Johnny Bryant, making his pro debut in June, I believe. So he's like one to look out for. He's a flyweight, so yeah, but I think it'd be hard to just single out sort of one or two sort of guys. I've got a lot of good talent coming through. Mainly a lot of my talent are the younger ones, so you'll start to see them sort of, hopefully, if they stay in the gym, flourish within the next sort of 5 years,
Paul, with that, like obviously before you were coaching, you had your own career in combat sports, and I just wanted to talk to you really about your start in in MMA. And how did you get into fighting on a whole, and how old were you? Like, how did that transition happen?
Okay, so I've been doing martial arts pretty much all my life. I think I first started in 1986, 1985, 1986, and that was doing like traditional kung fu, and I did kickboxing for years as well. So, because my brother was my coach, so he's my first instructor. So obviously I trained in kickboxing and kung fu for about 10 years, and then obviously just started watching, the UFCs. I started watching UFC 1 to 3, and I thought straight away, as soon as I seen Royce Gracie using his jiu-jitsu, I thought, right, I need to find a local jiu-jitsu club. So I found a Japanese jiu-jitsu club, because there wasn't any BJJ clubs that were local to me. So I went to a Japanese jiu-jitsu club run by Ross Nakara, who used to run the Grapple and Strike events. So I trained with Ross for 2 to 3 years. Just
blast from the past, that name. My God.
Hey, old school, mate. Old school. I remember you from that as well.
Old school.
Because you fought on one of the Grapple and Strikes, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. A couple of times I had matches on there. Never done very well on there, but
yeah. So I trained with Ross for a few years, and then I did a few jiu-jitsu competitions, and we used to do what we call jiu-jitsu kumite, which was like striking, and then as soon as you get to the clinch, you have to stop striking, and then you just basically work jiu-jitsu on the ground, and that was done in the gi. So I'd done quite a few of those competitions, but I still wanted to test myself in full contact. So having done a few full contact tournaments, kickboxing tournaments, I obviously wanted to test myself in the MMA. So I met up with a guy, I don't know if you remember him, Danny Woodard, who was like one of the old school UK MMA refs. So we sort of met up one night, because we used to train together years before, and he said, "Oh, I've got a Thai boxing gym. Do you want to just come up and start working out?" So we did, and then we started to form a team sort of from there. And I think the first live event that I went to was one of Lee Hasdall's. I think it was the Samurai, was it, or what was it called? Something like that.
Yeah, Ring of Truth. Yeah,
I think you might have fought on it. Or Rings? Was it Rings? No, it wasn't Rings. It was Night of the Samurai.
There's Ring of Truth, wasn't there? And the Night of the Samurai that
it was at Milton Keynes, so I remember that.
Yeah.
And that was the first event that I went to, and I thought I got to do this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might have been 2000, maybe 1999, something
1999, I
like
think
that.
it was. Yeah.
You might be able to clear that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
1999. Yeah.
obviously from there, yeah. So obviously after watching that, I thought, you know, this is something that I want to try my hand at. Um, so I took my first fight on, I think it was Grappling Strike 3, I believe.
Right.
So I did a jiu-jitsu match on Grappling Strike 1, I think, and then I did an MMA fight on Grappling Strike 3, and obviously from there I thought to myself, I'm just going to try it once, see if I like it or not. I tried it once and I was just in love with the sport, you know. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I just like all the time that I've been doing martial arts, I just love competition. I like competing, and I always love you know, pitting myself against somebody else to just see who's the better man, you know. So yeah, from there, obviously fought on Grappling Strike a few times, and then I fought on the Ultimate Combat events, which were in Chippenham. Um, then I fought on Extreme Brawl, Cage Rage, and Cage Warriors, and I fought over in Holland as well once. And on my last competitive fight, I ruptured my ACL, and that I had to have a
Ouch.
ACL reconstruction, and that literally just finished my career basically, and that was in 2005, I think.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say to you,
Yeah,
did you have
geez,
an
brutal,
official
mate.
retirement fight, or? But it's, you know, you just said, you know,
No,
your last fight you needed surgery, and that put paid to it. And what
yeah.
was it? Once you had the surgery, did you know that was going to be it?
Yeah, I had obviously with the reconstruction, I had the graft from the hamstring to make a new ligament in my
Yeah.
knee, ACL ligament. And after doing the rehab, I never had the full range of motion in my knee after that. So I was never in a position where I could say I was 100%. And I didn't ever want to fight without being 100%. And to be honest, at that time, I think I was 35 years old.
Right.
And like at 35 years old, fighting in the lightweight division, you're not really, you know, you're considered pretty much an
Yeah.
old man. And
Yeah.
you know, and I was undersized. I was undersized for that division anyway, because at the end of the day, I'm only 5'6". So my body frame really, I mean, if I was fighting that, because the lightweight guys are monsters now, you know, if I was fighting
Yeah.
that, I'd
Yeah.
probably fight at 125 or 135 maximum, you know. So you know,
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
in those days, the early 2000s, I think the lowest weight class we had at the time was lightweight, and I never used to cut any weight for it as well. It was
Yeah.
just literally just like that was my walk around weight, and I just fought, you know. So
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
with
crazy.
time and stuff. But
A lot of people have been spoilt with all these weight divisions. But you're right. You know, I think UFC
yeah,
bought in featherweight in 2010. But you know,
yeah,
up until then, I was fighting lightweight as well. And I started my fight career. I was walking around. I was 5'10", walking around at 64 kilos, and I was having to fight people cutting down to 70 kilos. It was really difficult in the early
yeah,
years. Really, really difficult. I mean, luckily, I was technically
mm,
better than most, which and I was training very, very seriously regards my cardio. And a lot of the time, that's what pushed me through to get the wins that I did get. But I fought some monstrously different weight divisions. I thought Pat Carr on that Grapple and Strike. You know, you're saying about those days,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I
yeah,
remember when we turned up, it's supposed to
yeah,
be 70 kilos, and back then they had a set of toilet scales that weren't precise or anything. But I remember I turned up a little bit late. I actually got caught for speeding, going down to fight him. And when we arrived, I jumped on the scales at 64 kilos, and we're like, bloody hell, he looks massive because he's quite short in stature. Do you remember he was quite short?
yeah,
You know, about
yeah. I do.
five, five,
I
five.
remember very very well. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's very,
yeah,
very good. And we said, yeah, you jump on the scales, and he was like 75 kilos, even if it's supposed to have been at 70. And they bumped me 50 quid to still take the
yeah,
fight. And you know, as you did back then, you did. But I remember when we both went leg kick for leg kick, my kick bounced off his thigh, and he kicked me off my feet. And I knew, I'm like, oh, this is going to be one of those nights. And yeah, weight difference matters. It really, really does. But yeah, we
it does.
both
Yeah, yeah,
experienced the difficulty of not having a broader spectrum of weight divisions.
yeah.
Yeah. Paul, what was the transition like from being a fight, an out and out fighter, to becoming a coach? Had you done a bit of coaching before you had finished up your fighting career, or was it something you had always wanted to, you would always look to be doing? What sort of transition was that, and was it difficult also?
Well, I when I was training with my brother, because I trained with him for like over 10 years, so I became a black belt anyway, and I started doing a little bit of coaching for him. So I've always been involved with coaching for years.
Yeah.
So uh, when I retired from competitive fighting, then coaching was like a natural transition for me. And I've been coaching, in my own gym since, well, I was head coach at Trojan since 2010, and I actually own Trojan and stuff now. So I've been doing that since 2015. So, but I love coaching. My passion, that's my calling in life. I'm actually a way better coach than what I was fighter. That's my opinion. I absolutely love coaching all aspects of it. What I really like is bringing through kids, or you get kids come through into your gym who have not much really going for them, and you can transform that and turn that around. Whether they compete or not, it doesn't matter. But if you just make their life better, and obviously if you have got people who do compete, when they start winning tournaments and they start winning fights and stuff, I find it more rewarding than when I fought, to be honest with you. So the transition for me was really, really natural to go from being a fighter, because I always want to be involved in martial arts. I can't see any part of my life where I'm not going to be involved in martial arts. You know, I've been doing it like for over 35 years. So I
Was
just
it
see that continuing, and I love coaching.
was it ever frustrating, like not being in that sort of full time competitive like mindset, and go into purely just coaching, or because of the injuries, it just felt like the natural transition without the, like you hear sometimes fighters and other athletes of other sports, when they sort of move from competitive to just coaching and maybe a little bit of sparring or a bit of football, or whatever it may be, they can find it a bit frustrating. Was there any of that, or was it because like I say, because of your injuries, it was just a natural?
No, to be honest, you've been a fighter for, like, at that time, I think I competed like with all across the board, different martial arts for, I think it was 18 years straight. So I've been fighting for 18 years, and then to
Wow.
go from that to doing nothing, is, it does get you. I can see why a lot of fighters suffer from like depression and stuff like that, and it's not because you're not in the limelight anymore. It's just, it feels like
The
something's missing in your life,
competitive.
and purpose. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So to be honest, I'm a really competitive coach as well, because I like to compete my skill set as a coach, against others. So I still sort of channel it that way. So I try and do the best I can for all of my guys, to try and get them the best, they can. Obviously when they got fights coming up, I do so much research, on their opponents, and I really thrive off that competitive side now, as opposed to actually physically doing it myself.
Cool. Awesome. um the other thing I wanted to ask really was kind of like a couple of like I don't know what the word is, like random questions just about your career and stuff. Like, is there a particular fight
Yeah.
which you look back at and you think that's my favourite, for whatever reason it may be?
Uh, yeah. Probably I fought for the Cage Warriors lightweight title, because I was actually the first lightweight um, title holder for Cage Warriors. So
Okay.
that probably was my favorite fight. That was against Ozzy Haluk. And going into that fight, I remember reading up on the internet and stuff, that on the forums, that people were saying that he was going to knock me out and do this and do that, and I was so not angry, but I was so determined in that fight that I was going to like make a statement. And I
Yeah.
stopped him in the second round. Um, So nothing against him. I mean, I'm good friends with him now. I never had anything against any of my opponents, to be honest with you. I just love to go out there and compete hard. But yeah, that was probably my most satisfying fight. I don't think any fighter has anything where they say, "Yo, go
Yeah.
out there and you're absolutely 100% satisfied with what you've done." Every fight that I look at, especially now, I absolutely cringe because it's like a totally different time, you know. Like the level of technique. Like I've got amateurs now who would murder like pros, like back in the day when I was fighting, you know. So everything's evolution, you know. But yeah, I think that was probably the most rewarding fight that I particularly had done myself.
That takes me into my next question. Actually, me and Danny and various guests have talked a lot recently about the evolution in MMA. Just even in the last sort of probably 3 to 5 years, like even the guys who are like at the very bottom of the rankings in the biggest promotions have got generally an all-round game, whereas like even when going back to more fairly recent time of like when Conor McGregor was coming through his early days of the UFC, the reason he never no one ever questioned his wrestling and things like this is because he generally didn't need to use it because his striking was taking him through people very quickly, and he was getting, I don't want to say getting by on his striking because I feel like that's a little bit disrespectful, but like he was winning his fights with his striking alone. And I feel like in the last 3 to 5 years, you just can't do that. You can't be just a striker or just a wrestler. And I guess the question is like, how much do you see in the evolution of MMA over the years? Obviously, like you mentioned, you've been fighting since, or you've been doing martial arts since the 80s, and we're in 2021 now. Like, tell me some of the evolution you've seen in the fight game in various forms over the years.
Well, obviously, if we're looking at MMA, I mean, MMA is absolutely night and day from when I fought to now. Even if you look back 10 years, MMA is the fastest evolution of sport, combat sports that there is, because there's new techniques coming in. There's new ways of throwing those techniques. The striking is hybrid for MMA. The footwork is hybrid for MMA. Obviously, the way you wrestle and even wrestling on the cage, obviously that's not freestyle or Greco. Obviously, it's MMA wrestling, So this is one of the things that I crossed over to MMA from doing traditional martial arts, is because the evolution of it, and there's no sort of set way of doing things, and each club that you go to will have certain nuances of how to do certain techniques, and you can always pick things up from different people. And obviously watching like the UFC and some of the high level fighters, I always try and pick up the little details on certain things. That's why I like training with other people as well. I pick up little details all the time, and I try and add that to my arsenal. And I play around with it in the gym, and then I try and experiment a lot with the guys, and we'll say, right, let's try this. That's the part of martial arts I actually love, is because in mixed martial arts, there's no parameters. You can actually move things around all the time. Whereas if you come from say a traditional martial arts background, obviously you've got a set structure, you've got a set techniques that you can do, and you don't waver from that, because if you're not doing that, you're not being traditional. So whereas I respect traditional martial arts values, which I do, I like to have respect, between student and coach and stuff like that. But obviously the evolution of technique, I try and invest a lot of my time in evolving techniques to feed down to my students. I love that part of the sport. That's what keeps me really motivated, is the evolution of it and trying different things. And I might see one of my guys do something in the gym, and it's something I haven't shown them, and I'm like, I'll stop the class. I say, how'd you do that? So it's
Yeah.
having that open mind and learning of various different people. It's like, just because I'm a coach, it doesn't mean I know everything. I try and guide the guys the best I can. But if one of my guys, I see them do a really good technique, I'll stop the class and say, hey, show that technique. It was really good.
Yeah.
So for me, that's what
See,
martial arts is all about, is evolution.
like Danny, that sounds like to me, and you know, I've done a little tiny bit of coaching in terms of football and stuff like that with kids, and like I believe that that's a vital part of teaching anyone anything is accepting that you don't know everything, and accepting that the people you're teaching might be able to teach you things, that there's always room to learn new skills, new ways of doing things, more efficient ways of doing things, new things completely from anyone. Like every day's a school day, of course, is the famous saying, isn't it? But obviously, you're a coach, you're an ex-fighter yourself. Is that something that you can sort of relate to a lot?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't put no holds on any of my guys and girls to want to go off and train anywhere else. And I'd say the more the merrier. If you're young enough, fit enough, and you've got the financial means to travel around and get training with other coaches, I think it's all but a good thing. And if they come back to home base and share anything new that they may have learned, I think it's great. Jordan's a great advocate of that. Jordan Vasenik, he trains with numerous other coaches along with the BST coaching that we have, but he goes off and trains with other striking coaches, wrestling coaches, and indeed some of the other students do. I'm not insecure where I worry someone's going to learn to do a double leg better than the way I taught it, because I actually have done not even a handful of wrestling classes in my life. I just learned to do the wrestling through understanding the mechanics of the body and the mechanics of martial arts, and come up with my own way and my own method. Even though it's very much my own way, it probably ends up being the same way as wrestlers do it, maybe, I don't know. But all of our cage war stuff, as an example, is done purely with my own creation and just stumbling across things that worked, taking things out that didn't work. So we still adapt and change even now. Sometimes the way we did a double leg, the level change up against the fence back 5 years ago isn't the way that we perhaps set it up and go about it now. The strategy of the ideas of thinking are more numerous now, and we constantly change and adapt. And Paul's exactly right. As a coach, I'm also fascinated with the strategy implementation that could be had between two physicalities. One person might be slow twitch, another person's fast twitch. You can have tall, short, thick, thin. Weight cutting is part of the issue as well. Some people can come in really quite big. Other people are not very good at weight cutting. They come more at their natural weight. There's so many things to take into consideration with the MMA. It's absolutely fascinating. And I'm absolutely agree with Paul. I'm obsessed with wanting to compete, gym for gym, strategy for strategy, tactics for tactics. I love that. I come from a background of competing heavily in chess from school, to a point where I played for Somerset, I played for West of England, I played really, really high level chess. I've just got this competitive bug, and although I can't be competitive no longer, one-on-one with another individual coming from another team, I can pit, my knowledge and my coaching, which as a coach I'm more of an advisor. Just because one of my students fights doesn't mean it's everything that I've advocated, but what I do advocate is freedom to go and train with other people, come back to home base, their share. So no one's a carbon copy of me, no one's a carbon copy of just my knowledge, but my knowledge is an integral part of their game, and I am part of their journey, but I'm not the all and end all of their journey by any means. And so I sit very, very similar to Paul on that. I've seen Paul as a fighter, always said. In fact, we was due to fight, I think, if you remember rightly, Paul. Do you ever remember?
Yeah. Was it on? Was it on Extreme Brawl? I think it was, wasn't it?
I believe it was, yeah. And we're talking a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
And I have mentioned this before on a podcast, but what happened with that one was I was a postman, and I got bit and dragged to the bloody floor by an Alsatian. Punctured all my leg, got to have an injection, everything. And it's about 2 weeks
some
out.
excuses in my time.
Yeah, I know, isn't it? Yeah, bloody dog got hold of me, didn't it? And I've still got the scars today on my leg. And yeah, the bugger got hold of me. And I was actually debating with this guy, saying, look, you keep leaving your dog out on the lawn, and it keeps stalking me. I can't get in the street. I've been having to take the mail back. He goes, no, my dog won't ever hurt anyone. And as I'm walking up the path, I tried to walk confidently close to him and his dog because it was on a lead. I thought, I don't want to look like I'm scared of the dog in front of this guy, because I'm kind of like arguing with the guy as I carried on posting my mail. But the dog lunged for me, got hold of my leg, and yeah, it was an awful situation. But yeah, I don't know what you got told, but do you
I
ever
actually
remember?
didn't get told anything. Just like Danny's not going to fight. I
Uh,
think I fought. I think it was Frederick Fernandez. I think I fought after that
right, okay, yeah,
as a
yeah, because I ended up
replacement. I
fighting
think
Emmanuel,
that fight.
his brother, years
Yeah,
later. But
yeah,
they
yeah,
were
yeah,
both very, very successful
yeah,
brothers, wasn't they?
yeah, yeah,
Interesting stuff.
yeah. The good guys.
Yeah, absolutely. They're really good guys. They've done a lot of good things for the sport.
I
They have.
really find
They
it
have.
fascinating that you two could afford. Do you know, Danny? One thing I will quickly say because I'll forget is me and you need to start playing some online chess, mate. Because my
Oh,
brother used to play
absolutely. I'm up for that.
chess for Wales, so he used to train me up to practice. I'm not very good, but I'm all right. Like I haven't played for a while. I used to play it when I was drunk. Me and my mate used to get back from the pub at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and would drive my mother insane because we'd be sat in the kitchen drinking tequila, just playing chess for like
Yeah,
6 hours. She'd be waking up for work, and we'd be sat in the kitchen just staring at each other playing chess drunkenly. Uh,
it's a
it's
good game,
just
man. Love
yeah,
it.
it is good. We'll have to start that up, online chess, I think. But okay, right. I want to move towards the UFC from last night now because we're an hour in. Um, I just thought it was. I thought it was a real. I don't know whether it's because we had a week off. I know we had Bellator to talk about, but every time they seem to have a little break with the UFC, the show which they come back with just seems to be really good. I thought it was quite a special show last night. You know, I know it wasn't up to the kind of levels of, you know, your main pay per views, and it was technically just a fight night. I think it also helps for us in the UK that it was on at a decent time, so I was able to watch live, which, you know, that makes such a difference when you can watch it as it's going on and you can kind of react to it. You're not watching it after the effect. But we're going to focus on the main card, but there's one prelim fight which we're most definitely going to discuss. And that was JAck Shore defeating Hunter Azure via a split decision. And this scorecard, by the way, was so weird. 30-27, 30-27, JAck Shore, and then 28-29 to Azure. Danny, you talk to us first about Jack's performance and the fight overall, and also talk to me about that scorecard because it's a very strange one.
Yeah, the scorecard part of it, I'm actually going to leave for Paul because I believe you've done judging for UFC or
Oh
still
yes,
do.
of course.
You know, this is something
I
that
do.
needs to
Yes.
be. Yeah, so this is going to be great
There we go.
insight to a judge's perspective of things. But you know, so I'm going to leave that bit aside. I might embarrass myself with Paul here. So, but look, a really good performance. It was nice to see some of Jack's striking because he's been able to get people down so quickly, particularly in Cage Warriors, and you know, very, very easily dispatch people. But this time, he was up against someone who can wrestle really, really well himself. But wow, he did absolutely amazing. We got to see his defensive wrestling, his counter-offensive wrestling, which we know is very, very good. But you know, he took this guy down. He did make a couple of mistakes. There was one time where when Jack tried to drag him down and put himself
Yes.
on his back. So it was not a completely polished performance. You've got to remember how young this lad is. But each time I see him, I see notable improvements. He's going up in competition each time. He's doing it on the biggest format, being the UFC. He conducts himself so amazingly. I really liked his 1-2 punching combination. Although it's a simplistic punch combination, he really knew his range well. Makes great decisions on getting the entry, which is why he was able to out-wrestle the wrestler. He's just picking perfect timing, great decision making. I just think some people have just got a genius responses. We're geniuses in all different ways, as artists, as mathematicians, and so on. This kid's just an absolute genius at just selecting the right move at the right time. He's got great reactions. I'm utterly impressed with him all round. He's making massive improvements each time, like I say, and he's going up in competition each time. Someone needs to beat him soon because with the way he's going, he's just going to become more and more of a potential unstoppable force.
Um,
I just watch with excitement at this young lad keep performing. I really do. But he definitely needs to step up in competition now, and that's what I'm really excited to see.
100%. And just before I throw to Paul, Danny, you mentioned the mistake he made, but you know what was so impressive about that, at least for me, was how quickly he got up when he was on his back. Like
Yeah,
he made the error, Hunter Azur was on top of him, and it felt like within seconds he had kind of adjusted and wriggled, and he was up.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow. Like, even when he's made that mistake, he still somehow managed to end up, back on his feet. And I just, like you say, I thought it was an all-round very impressive performance.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, you could tell by the commentators, they all rated Jack Shore. They all knew who he was and some of his skill sets. But they seem to be very much expecting him to dominate the strikes and try and stay away from the wrestling, whereas Jack Shore in no way stayed away from the wrestling because, of course, as we've seen in Cage Warriors, it's a very strong part of his game. But I guess over the years you haven't seen many British fighters go over to America and kind of out wrestle these NCAA guys, and certainly not wrestling them to the floor is one thing, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, look, MMA wrestling's become something of its own. Paul already summed it up. The striking is striking of its own right. The jiu-jitsu is a jiu-jitsu of its own right. MMA is creating its style of its own. It doesn't mean that the traditional systems ain't part of your integral training to prepare for a fight, but definitely the stylistic point of each of those ranges is very, very MMA-esque and open to interpretation as well. This is the other beauty of MMA. The way different people strike and the way different people wrestle. I mean, there's no black and white method of doing any of it. It's really open to expression, and it's a great thing. And look, Jack Shore doesn't come from a pedigree wrestling background like so many of the Americans, Canadians, and Russians do. But it just goes to show that he can train, he can prepare, and he can outdo them because it's MMA formatted. It's great to see. It really is.
Yeah, it was. I think. I don't know what the word is. It's fascinating to watch, mate. It really was. It's just one of those really exciting fighters to watch because he, like you said, and I thought it was a great point you made. Every time he's fought, he looks better in all aspects of his game, and he did make a couple of mistakes. However, what he did do is he adjusted very, very quickly, and if he has another 3 or 4 fights where he gets better each time, but also keeps winning, there's no ceiling for him. And what he can become. Paul, what did you make of Jack Shore's performance, the fight overall? Like, Hunter Azur is not an easy fight for Jack Shore.
I thought it was a fantastic performance from Jack. Obviously, me and his dad go way back. We're part of the same jiu-jitsu organization. And I've known Shaky for years from obviously the grapple and strike days and stuff, And to see the evolution of his son is absolutely fantastic. He is actually more mature than his age suggests, okay? Because he is just such a great decision maker on everything that he does. And even if he is you say he was he was underneath, but he never panics. He will never panic. He's just got such a mature head on him, and that's something that, to be honest, you can't really teach. He's an absolute testament of what a sort of second generation MMA fighter should be, and any young fighter, should, like in this country especially, should look up to that guy and sort of, see what he's doing, how he trains. You notice he's never on social media,
No.
trash talking people and stuff. He's a proper martial artist, and that's one thing I really respect about him and his dad as well. And I just think his skill set is phenomenal. He's solid absolutely everywhere, absolute beast on the ground, and he's just got a complete game. And he only uses the techniques that he needs to use. He never wastes energy. You never see him doing spinning heel kicks and stuff. Wasting energy. He just picks the right technique all of the time. He's a great decision maker. And I thought that was a great fight last night. It was a tough fight as well. From a officiating standpoint, obviously I judge for the UFC and I've judged for them for 10 years now. What I will say, if a fight is 29-28. You can even have a 30-27 and it can go two opposite different ways. But it doesn't mean the fight is lopsided either way. Rounds can be like won and lost, or how you perceive it, where you are in the cage, just on a margin. And yes, you have to give a 10 and a 9 for each particular round, but it doesn't mean it was a landslide, So a lot of the time when people sort of complain online, I think their complaints are not warranted because they don't understand the criteria, and two, do not understand even a 30-27 can be a close fight. Every round can be super razor close, and you still give it to you give it to the one fighter, and it says 30-27, but in the scheme of things, it was still a close fight. I think people misinterpret scoring, and that's what I will say. Because I would never throw an official under the bus anyway. That's for sure. Because I've been there in that position, and I know how difficult a job it is. Sometimes when you're on the wrong side of the cage, it's quite hard to see it. Wherever you are in the where you're seated cage side, can be quite difficult to pick up certain things. Certain times, if they're behind, like one of the posts, for example, someone could throw a strike. You think it lands, and it might not have landed. Because you missed it because they're behind a post. So like all the time, you're trying to look in the cage and you're trying to look on the monitor as well. So you're looking between the both, and sometimes you can miss those little intricate little parts. So it's not an easy job. I tell you that. A lot of people will say stuff and they're sat on their sofa, but you be there in that high pressure situation. It's a really difficult job. And as I said before, a 30-27 doesn't mean a landslide. Either way, you can have a 30-27 go one way, 30-27 go the other, and it could be a razor close fight. People just need to understand the criteria as well,
Yeah,
so
the intricacies
that's what I will say
of the
on
criteria.
that.
Paul, can I ask you, how did you score that fight? So obviously you've got a much better understanding of the criteria than what I have, and I'm interested in sort of how you scored it, or it doesn't have to be exact, but just which way you saw it going.
So I continually have this discussion with my fighters in the gym. So when I watch a fight and I'm watching it at home, I'm not watching it as a judge, to be honest with you. I'm actually enjoying the fight like a spectator.
Okay,
When you're there working, your mindset is totally different. You're looking at different things. I would have scored it probably 29-28 to JAck Shore. He definitely won the fight, in my opinion, just from watching it as a casual. But I couldn't give you a concrete sort of exactly how I would, because I wasn't scoring the fight. When you're watching it at home, you're just watching it as a casual, like you guys are watching it, And when you're there cage side working, it's a totally different mindset that you have to have. You're looking at different things a lot closer as well. The little intricacies you have to look at very, very closely when you're watching it as an official, when you're working. But when you're at home, you're just kind of like relaxing. But I think I was drinking a glass of wine when I was watching it, So just enjoying the fight. But yeah, from a casual standpoint where I was just watching the fight, I thought, JAck Shore definitely won the fight in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
I
good.
thought so. So I thought it was a close fight. I thought JAck won, but I feel I'm glad that we had that explanation from you, because it gives me a better understanding as well. Because obviously, when you see it on paper and you see the difference, it can sort of feel a bit disjointed to have such different scores. But like you say, there's so much criteria and intricacies to how that score comes about that there could be a reason for it. I thought it was a really enjoyable fight. And just lastly on JAck Shore, Danny, who would you like to see him go up against next? Would you like to see him get someone closer to those rankings? Maybe even someone from the rankings?
I still
lower down rankings.
I don't want him being. Although I think he could compete in the top 15, I think he's going to be competitive there. But just because he is so young, although he is very mature in his thinking and his game, I just want to see the steady approach for his career. He's going to have an amazing career, but I just, when I say about that someone's got to beat him soon because we're going to become more potentially unbeatable, although no one's unbeatable, but much harder to beat. He's just getting more and more complete. He's getting his style down more and more, and physically as well. I think he's becoming more manly as he seasons with his body. He's just so young still. So for that much, I don't want him jumping up too quick, but certainly, he's in the top 20 in my mind, and I
Yeah.
don't think he'd be out of place to get someone in that sort of ranking. I think he'll be very, very relevant there.
Yeah, I mean, previously we talked about maybe giving him some legends who are perhaps on the not the downslide, but that's coming towards the end of their career. And I know that was a bit
The
sort of
downslide, sorry.
tongue
Say it, you
tongue.
just said it.
I know he said it like a bit tongue in cheek, and it was like the legend killer gimmick, wasn't it? But like, so ranked 15 is Marlon Vera. Then you've got Kyler Phillips, Cody Starman, and Mirab Dishvali. They're the sort of the four at the bottom, or the Jimmy Riviera. That's the bottom five of the rankings. You say, if you're saying that Jack Shore's in that top 20, the next step seems to be kind of one of those guys, doesn't it? Really,
Yeah.
unless they was to give him someone else who's just outside the rankings, which I think would not be a bad idea. But if you had to pick someone from that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, would anyone
Who's
stick out for
the
you?
first two you mentioned? Which way round was it?
So you had Marlon Vera's 15, Kyler Phillips 14, Cody Starman 13, Mirab Dishvali is 12th, Jimmy Riviera 11, and then you've got Rafael Sanka.
I'd say Marlon Vera because I think we all agree he's not quite what he was, and so he's definitely someone who's got some big status about him from his previous performances, but kind of like dropping out a little bit now. I think that would be a great scalp to take, and I just think that'll be good. I just don't want to see him jumping up too quick, even though he's doing absolutely amazing. But do you know what? Get him on the main card. Get him fighting someone between ranks 20 and 15, and then when he wins that fight, which he will, then he can start breaking through and really start making a noise and putting himself into contention. It could be within 2-3 years of being a title holder. I think it's very, very possible.
You say Vera, Danny. Vera's last 3 fights, he lost to Yardung, then he beat Sean O'Malley via a TKO, and then he lost to Jose Aldo. So, if Jack was to have that fight, and if he was to win, they're the next lot of names, aren't they?
They are.
That's how close he is to making that sort of next step up, I think, isn't it? In terms of where he goes next. So it'll be interesting what they do with him. Okay, let's move on to the main card. The first fight was a really enjoyable fight. Was D-Rod. Daniel Rodriguez beat Mike Perry. A very different Mike Perry, may I add, than we've seen recently. But Rodriguez picked up the victory via unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, 30-26. I thought this one was relatively one-sided. It wasn't like a complete decimation, but it was pretty one-sided. I'll tell you one thing, though, Danny, Mike Perry can take a punch.
Oh, man, yeah. His face showed it as well. He was really, really banged up. But he did impress me. He looked more like how you would expect a UFC fighter to conduct himself. Sometimes he's looked so rugged. Yeah, he's looked so rugged previously, and you never know what shape he's been in. He's had questionable corner back up and so on and so forth. But Mike Perry was looking really good. I think he had the means to win in the first couple of rounds, doing the takedowns against Rodriguez. He started looking really good. I was really surprised. But then as he began to tire, I think sometimes his cardio is a little questionable. He began to sort of fade each round, and Rodriguez just started to take it over with his hands and started really marking Perry up. Perry was unable to get it to the ground and just started to slip from his grasp. But I think it was all for the taking for him. But yeah, it just seems like his gas tank started to run short. He's kind of standing in front of Rodriguez in the end, and he was just getting so damaged up. But he's such a tough cookie. You're not going to get him out of there so easily. But, taking damage is not winning fights, and it was a little bit unfortunate because, like I say, he was really impressing me for the first couple of rounds, but just dwindled and looked less energetic and become more of a target for Rodriguez.
Yeah, he took some big shots. He didn't seem to be seeing that left hand coming over the top, or straight through the middle, really. So obviously, previously he had been going in without a coach and just with his girlfriend or whatever in his corner. This fight, he had an amateur fighter with him, but he has signed or he's gone to a new gym and he's got a new head coach. I don't know if they were involved in this camp or if it's something that he's recently, because they interviewed his new coach on one of the, one YouTube or something. And they kind of said, that going forward he's going to be with them, but they would noticeably, they weren't with him. He was with this fighter. Paul, what do you make of this fight? But also, like Mike Perry, he seems like he's got some talent, but also a bit unpredictable, maybe.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought he did really well in the first round. He started using his grappling. I actually think he's probably a better grappler than he is striker, to be honest with you. But obviously, he's got so much power with his hands, and he's so aggressive. He likes to throw his hands a lot. But I've really been impressed with his wrestling and the grappling, to be honest with you. So maybe, and obviously, if he's moved to a new gym, as Danny will tell you, it takes quite a while to sort of mesh with the coaches and the other fellow fighters and stuff. You can't just go to a gym and go to a team and expect it to click straight away. It does take quite an adjustment time for you to settle in. So probably in another 1 or 2 fights, you might see a new version of him. Just jumping from team to team doesn't always correct things straight away. Obviously it takes time. But he's a very good fighter. I think he conducted himself really well. But he's still a little bit rough around the edges. I think he probably just needs a bit more sort of finesse really behind what he's doing. Going back to JAck Shore, by the way, I'd like to see him fight Nathaniel Wood, to be honest with you.
That would be a good one. That would be a tenner, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
they will save that.
Yeah,
for
because if you think back, Nathaniel Wood fought Jack's teammate, which was Josh Reed, was it, on the Cage Warriors?
Yeah,
you remember that rank that they had? And I think he went to the UFC, from then. And I think those two, obviously, two top prospects, and I don't think Nathaniel's in the top 15. I don't think.
No, I don't.
So I think that would be a really good fight, especially if can you imagine that would be a main event on a UK card? Like a fight night or something.
Yeah, if they go back, because there was a UFC London card, wasn't there, which was cancelled because of the pandemic. Like right back at the first lockdown. And I think once everything opens up properly, they'll want to get that on as soon as possible. But then I know that a lot of the Welsh fighters have been pushing for a couple of years now for a UFC in Cardiff as well. So you could do UFC Cardiff with JAck Shore versus Nathaniel Wood as the main event. That would be an incredible atmosphere. So there's a few cities around the UK which I think would like to throw their hats in the ring for a UFC card. But ultimately, I think we all agree that we'd like to see UFC back in the UK sooner rather than later. And I agree, that would be a fantastic main event. And I'm sure Leon Edwards was one on that card as well. Among and let's be honest, there's some really high level UK based fighters and UK fighters in the UFC at the moment, both male and female. So they could make up a really strong UFC card for a London show or a UK based show. Very quickly, Dan, how impressive was Daniel Rodriguez in this fight? I mean, really has impressed me his last couple of goes.
Yeah. He's proven himself, isn't he? His performances have been good of late. This was a good tester for him to show his pedigree, and I think he's done it. He's going to be stepping up. I don't know who they'll offer him next, but I think they'll offer him someone fairly quickly, and we're going to see him start getting into relevancy very, very soon.
Yeah, I think they'll offer him a big fight, I would have thought now.
Yeah.
Next up was the fight you told me, Dan, that you were really looking forward to last week, which was Nina Nunes versus Mackenzie Durn. And Mackenzie Durn did not disappoint.
Yeah, she's just so good on the ground. I mean, she's becoming a good striker as
She's
well. But
improved a hell of a lot, hasn't she?
yeah, but on the ground, she's just so dangerous. And Nunes really got exposed. I mean, it was an armbar from guard, not something that you see, working so often. But the girls seem to make them work more often than the men do. But spinning around from guard like that's such a jiu-jitsu technique and execute it so well. And you've really got to have live hips. And Mackenzie Dern's definitely got all of that. She's got very, very live hips. She's got hips right up underneath that elbow and made short work of it. I mean, what can you say about the performance, really? She got it into the area that she's obviously most proficient in, and she expressed that. And yeah, Nunes got put out there pretty damn quickly. Very impressive performance.
Yeah, I thought the patience as well as she was trying to get the armbar, like she didn't get frustrated as Nunes was kind of holding on, wasn't she, to try and hold. I think it was towards the end of the round,
Yeah,
and
12
Mackenzie
seconds I think
Durn,
was left.
yeah, she didn't get too frenetic trying to get it. She just gradually got the pieces
She
in
was in
place.
control. She knew she was in control.
Paul, what did you think of Mackenzie Dern's performance? She's improved a lot over these past couple of fights, particularly.
Yeah, she's shown she's really well-rounded. Her wrestling has improved as well. Obviously on the floor, she's an absolute beast. She's out of the ladies, she's probably got the best jiu-jitsu in that division for sure. I'd like to see her against someone like Tatiana Suarez, who's got the wrestling as well. How that would
Yeah.
pan out. That would be a good fight.
Mm,
But
yeah.
yeah, she's I think probably maybe one or two fights away from a title shot. I think.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. It's I've been Danny. I know you've been very impressed with Mackenzie Dern the last couple of goes, but it's just for me, it's the improvement that she shows with every go, and they're the fighters that stand out, aren't they? It's the ones that address any issues as they keep winning, because
Yeah.
even though they're winning, they're not resting on their laurels. They keep learning, keep improving, and it's the best way to develop, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next up was Sam Alvey versus Julian Marquez. I've not been massively impressed with Sam Alvey in recent times. I felt like he's looked a bit sluggish, and he's been very reliant on those kind of the loading up those big knockout shots. And if they don't come, he gets caught relatively. I don't want to say easily, but if he doesn't get his big shots in, he does seem to get set up for certain things quite easily. And Julian Marquez got that rear naked choke victory about 2 minutes into the second round, and he seemed, I'm sure it wasn't as easy as it looked, but he seemed to get it on relatively simple once he hit those big shots.
Yeah, I think Marquez rocked him, didn't he? And
Yeah, a
as
couple of
Alves
times.
went down, he was still, he still had birds flying around his head along with some
Yeah.
stars. And he can't just didn't respond to the grappling exchange that ensued really, really quickly after that. Alves, I agree. It's not looked impressive. He looks a little untidy, rough around the edges. Not too technical, doesn't always make the greatest decisions, but it can be awkward for some people. We've seen him be effective before, but yeah, overall it doesn't impress me, and I'm not surprised that Marquez got the victory. It is more of a case of how is he going to get the victory for me. Marquez he's just got to fight who and what is in front of him. And an opportunity to win was going to present itself at some stage, as far as I was concerned with this matchup. And it presented itself in the grappling exchanges after rocking Alves. So, yeah, good for Marquez. But overall, that matchup is not super interesting for me personally. I watched it because we had to, and to make notes about it. But yeah, it was so. I just watched it. I went through the motions really with that one.
Were you, Paul? Were you impressed with the patience which Marquez showed to be able to get into the position that he needed to get the shots and then ultimately get the submission? He didn't get too overexcited early on.
Yeah, he was picking his shots really well from the outside. He was didn't rush. You know, they did sort of have some heavy exchanges between them, and they were both landing at certain stages. But obviously, once he caught Alvey, and he did drop him, and obviously Alvey couldn't defend the rear naked choke because obviously his head was still buzzing from being lit up on the feet. And yeah, obviously, yeah, it was a bit of a savage finish as well. You know, no hooks, just sink it straight in. You know, so but yeah, he was impressive. You know, he picked his shot. He picked his shots really well, and he, you know, when he went in for the kill, he certainly didn't leave any questions answered there, did he?
No, he just choked him, didn't he? Brutally, like no hooks.
Brutally.
Just got it done.
Yeah.
So next up was a recent guest on the show, Arnold Almighty Allen, ranked number 10, versus Sadiq Yusuf, ranked number 11, in the co-main event. And this was, on paper, a very tricky fight for Arnold Allen. Sadiq Yusuf has been impressive. He's got some really sharp skills. So it was going to be very interesting to see how this fight went. I thought, just personally, I thought Arnold Allen was very clever, very impressive in this fight. He's got quite an unusual technique, but his footwork is just so good and so quick. His head movement as well is for me is particularly impressive. Just how he evades any of those big shots, and just really impressive performance. He knocked Sadiq Yusuf down in the first with a big left hand. Then he knocked him down with a head kick in the second round. Wasn't able to get the finish, but ultimately head movement and footwork were a delight, and his left hand was beautiful, and he picked up an impressive victory by unanimous decision. Paul, we'll go to you first time for this one. What did you make of Arnold Allen's performance and how he dealt with Sadiq Yusuf's skills?
Yeah, he showed a really mature performance, actually. Picked his shots, didn't get into any wild exchanges when he didn't need to, wrestled when he had to, especially in the third round. Yeah, he looked really good. I've always been impressed with him as well, because I remember seeing him on the regional scene as well, when he was coming up through the ranks, and he just seems to be going from strength to strength. It was a very difficult fight to have, because Sadiq Yusuf is really explosive, you know, quite fast. But yeah, he really controlled the fight really well, and just a well-deserved win, you know.
Yeah, do you think it was quite a mature performance by Arnold Allen? Because even he did seem to fatigue a little bit in that third round, and you know, you mentioned there, he used his wrestling and the clinch to negate any, you know, because I'm assuming Sadiq would have gone chasing a little bit, feeling that he was probably 2 rounds down. So to negate that and the fatigue, I thought it was quite cleverly done.
Yeah, that he showed great maturity on that, you know, just trying to slow the pace of the fight down in, you know, when he was ahead as well. So yeah, hats off to him. It was very good.
And Danny, what did you make of Arnold's performance? Because obviously we spoke to the man a few weeks back, and we were both impressed by what a cool head he had on his shoulders and very down to earth. But he's got some killer skills.
He absolutely has. I mean, that Yusuf, he's a very, very good athlete himself. You know, I thought he was going to be a little closer than it was. I know Yusuf's very, very dangerous. He just didn't seem to have an opportunity present itself enough to him. You know, it was him that was getting rocked rather than Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen always looked like the one that could perhaps get it put away at the end of that fight. But you're right, he was looking a little bit tired in that third round, but he had worked so hard. You know, there was something going on at all times. Even though it wasn't like a sprint fight, there was something going on constantly. Arnold Allen really put the grind on. A couple of times I think he made the clinch a little bit hard for himself. He a couple of times entered in on the hip and lower and was down on both knees, which is normally not a good idea. I was quite surprised that he come down on two knees like that. But sometimes I think that just happens because of the exhaustion of those constant exchanges in that wrestling range. It's just not easy against someone like that Yusuf. I'm not surprised that it was a bit debilitating. But yeah, look, a seasoned, good performance against a very, very good martial artist. Arnold Allen's moving on up. He's getting a very, very impressive record now. So, yeah, we're going to be seeing this kid soon and this kid up against some much more highly contested athlete, I think, real soon. It's going to be interesting to see who they're going to give him next now.
So, quick question. You said there about Sadiq Youssef didn't get the opportunity to perhaps nail one of those shots or to rock Arnold Allen. Is that because of some of the things that caught my eye that I mentioned, like his footwork and his head movement? I thought particularly whenever Sadiq was able to get a good shot in, Arnold Allen was either able to evade it with his head movement, be out of range with his footwork, or he was getting his elbow up a lot to protect himself. So does he deserve the credit for negating
Absolutely.
Sadiq's tools?
Yeah, absolutely. He was entering in on the wrestling at the right time. He defended just enough, but not overly so. So he was bringing Yusuf onto him. He just defended when he had to, but then he's pushing back on with his own proactivity. It was a little bit like what we were saying about Jack Shore. Just made really good decisions and stopped Yusuf being effective. And I think if you let someone like Yusuf sort of get away with his techniques and stuff, he starts introducing that physical power that he's got, you're going to be in for a hard night. He just looked like he got closed down by Arnold Allen through tactics and strategy. It was a clever performance, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got to ask you, obviously we'd like to talk about the British fighters. Arnold Allen, he was already ranked 10. He's picked up an impressive victory. Maybe, he would have been hoping for a finish to really push up those rankings. Where do you see him going next?
Well, who have we got in the few places above him? Because he's going to move up, obviously, from that. He could be really on the cusp of fighting someone in that top 6 or 7.
I always forget. Wait, lightweight, isn't he? Is he lightweight? I always get confused. Yeah, lightweight. Featherweight, sorry, mate.
Featherweight.
Where's the featherweight rankings? Let's have a look. Yeah, of course, he's 145, isn't he?
Yeah, there's a big pool of talented featherweights.
So, before the fight, just above him was Jeremy Stevens, Dan Ige, Josh Emmett, Kelvin Qatar, Chan Sung Young, Yaya Rodriguez, Zabit, Brian Ortega, Max Holloway, and then Volkanovski. Any of those names jump out for you straight away, Paul? That you'd like to see Arnold Allen face?
That's a murderer's row, that is, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? Just.
I don't know.
It's going to be a tough one, no matter what.
Yeah, that's a serious top 10 now. I don't know.
I wouldn't mind Danny Ige, I think would be
that's what I was going to say, because he's just had a very quick but very impressive performance, hasn't he, lately? So yeah, I think that wouldn't be out of place for a good bit of viewing.
Jeremy Stevens, who's one
I
above
think he's got a
as
fight
well.
scheduled. Yeah, Jeremy Stevens, maybe. I think that'd be a good. Yeah.
Good little.
That'd be a good fight, Jeremy Stevens.
A big name, isn't it? And Stevens is coming off the back of a loss to Calvin Qatar as well. So a good fight. Oh, actually, Jeremy Stevens, I just noticed, is on a 2-fight losing streak because he lost to Yair Rodriguez as well. And Jeremy Stevens hasn't fought since May last year, and before that it was October the year before. So I'm sure he's looking for a fight. So maybe Arnold Allen versus Jeremy Stevens does make the most sense as the kind of next one up. It's that's it. I think that's a good shout. Well done, us. So then we had the main event, as we mentioned at the start of the show. Kevin Holland making a quick turnaround after his loss to Derek Brunson recently. He filled in for Darren Till, who broke his collarbone, unfortunately. Interestingly, Darren Till said after the fight that he would destroy Vettori over 5 rounds, which I found quite interesting. He was very quick to say, but he's never one to be quiet with his views, I suppose, is Darren. But he also has got the skills to back it up, in fairness. So it'll be, I would say that fight will probably happen once his collarbone's all healed up. So the score was 50-44 across the boards. Marvin Vettori. I don't think there was any doubt about the decision. Marvin Vettori marches on. He did not want to get involved particularly in the striking to a massive degree, Danny, did he?
Holland looks sharp. He looks sharp. He looks fast. He's obviously rangy. There's a big difference in height and reach there, and he looked like if Vettori was going to play it stupid and stay on out of cringes, he was getting tagged up very, very early, and he wanted no part of it. It's nice to see Vettori choose to be strategical about the match and show some maturity. It was a good performance for him. He hit Holland where he's been shown to have weaknesses. He still had those weaknesses there, and he exploited them to the fullest. He really, really did. Really, the only real risk was, as the rounds progressed, was Vettori going to get tired, which we have seen in previous fights, although not in his last 2 performances. I think he's held his cardio up very, very well. He normally stands and bangs quite hard, doesn't he? He can fade out a little bit as the rounds go on. But Vettori was looking really seasoned, looking in good shape, and he was impressive. I'm just a little bit worried about what's going to happen with Kevin Holland now. He is such a fighter full of potential, but he's got to get that hole in his game sorted out. He's got to get it sorted out, whether it's about changing teams, bringing a certain coaching, I don't know. The errors in his game are really quite obvious, and therefore should be not necessarily an easy fix, but something that can be addressed from the get-go. And we did see a more serious Holland this time around, which was nice to see, not playing around as much, taking it seriously. You know what? I actually think he would have had some kind of room to try to get a win, but I think that eye got damaged so early on. Yeah. I really think that affected him. I really don't think he could have seen out of it
no
properly.
Way could he see when that doctor asked him. There was no way he could see. He went, no, I could see you. But,
yeah.
I just wanted to ask you a quick question, Daddy. Sorry, mate. I thought Marvin Vettori showed phenomenal self-control and maturity, because what Kevin Holland did this time around when he was talking is there was a reason why he was talking to Vettori, because he was trying to taunt him into standing and banging. And Vettori didn't fall for it. So when they were wrestling in the first couple of rounds, Kevin Holland was in his ear saying, "You don't want to fight, you don't want to stand and bang." He was giving it all that because he knew that if Vettori kept his cool and was strategic about it, he was going to wrestle him for 5 rounds and win the fight. Yeah. So I don't have a problem with Kevin Holland doing that. It was very different to what he did against Derek Brunson. Like, the Derek Brunson thing felt a bit disrespectful and like he wasn't taking it seriously. Yeah. Whereas this time round, I felt like it was a strategic move to try and irritate Vettori into standing and banging, which he has done before in other fights. And I thought he was very clear. I thought Vettori had to show that bit of self-control, because they'd had words in the build-up, so there was a bit of needle there. So it would have been easy for him to go, right, let's have it, sort of thing. Sure. So I thought that was really interesting, and I do agree with you with Kevin Holland. There's holes in his game he needs to work on, clearly, but I also think that there's clearly enough potential there that we shouldn't, or at least Dana White and the UFC shouldn't be looking at things like cutting him, because I just feel there's too much there. Clearly, he just needs to work with the right people. But I'm just a fan. Let's throw to another expert in Paul Sutherland. Did anything which I just said make sense, or was I talking rubbish?
Let me answer that.
No, you've had your
Very good, mate. Very good. I thought Vettori took the right process to win the fight. I think initially, he did want to start striking with him, but he was having problems with the range and the speed of Holland, I thought. and then he made an in-fight adjustment. Let's go to the wrestling. Obviously, that was always in his back pocket anyway, if he was having problems. And I think he did a fantastic job. Good decision maker, didn't waver off the game plan, once he made the adjustments. And I thought his top game was really, really good. You could see he's got a lot of top pressure there. He was trying to advance and pass Holland's guard a lot of the time. He mounted him a couple of times as well. But yeah, he looked really, really good. On the flip side, Kevin Holland, again, a really talented guy. I think he probably needs just a little bit of time to evolve his game a little bit, just on his wrestling. I think he's a real top prospect, and I think he can still be a force in the top 10 of that division, to be honest with you. He probably just needs just a little bit of time, maybe not take another fight next week or something, just take some time. I think he was supposed to be going, from what I read, he was supposed to be going to AKA, and then he took the fight. So if he does decide to go to AKA and train with Daniel Cormier and stuff, just shore up his wrestling, I think, we could have something there,
I agree.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think, that's the best thing you could do now, is not take another fight with a quick turnaround, because you've got no time to address anything. Then if you go straight into another fight camp, you're preparing for another opponent, and you've got no time to to really address anything then, because you're preparing. All right, just to finish us off then, very quickly, I'm gonna throw the matches for next week's UFC at you and ask you to give me a prediction on who's going to win. It's a very, very jacked card, actually. So we'll start with the main event.
I'll stop. Can I stop you there? Can I stop you there?
Yeah, go on.
Obviously, as an official, I never make predictions.
Yeah.
Okay.
I observe fights. I would never make a prediction. So I'll stop you right now.
So how about this then? If Danny and me will give predictions, we'll just say who we think's going to win, and you could talk about how you think the fight will go in terms of whether it'll be a strike fest or a wrestle fest or that sort of thing. A general overview. Would that work?
I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that.
There we go. Okay. So the main event is Robert Whittaker versus Kelvin Gastelum. I think Robert Whittaker is going to win. Danny, who do you think is going to win?
I think Whittaker's going to win. I think he's just more complete.
Okay. And Paul, how do you see the fight generally going?
I think if it's on his feet, I think Robert Whittaker's he controls distance really, really well, because he's obviously got it seems like he's got like a karate background. So he controls the distance really well. But if you look at Gastelum's last fight, he used a lot of wrestling as well, and he won the fight via, his grappling.
Yeah,
so
that was a surprise. That was a shocker.
Yeah, it all depends how that sort of pans out in the rounds, really. It's a 5-round, I assume, as well.
It is,
so that could be interesting as well, So yeah, that's how I see it. Obviously, I think even though Whittaker's very, very difficult to take down, I think if Gastelum can mix it up, obviously give him a few problems, and then obviously Whittaker with his footwork and distance control and speed, I think is obviously hard to deal with as well on the feet. So yeah, it's going to be a good one to watch.
Cool. And then we've got I would class these as two co-main events, really. So we just talked about one of the competitors. Jeremy Stephens is fighting next week. I did not realise that. He's fighting Drakkar Klose, who's not someone I'm massively familiar with. So I'm going to go with the newcomer in Drakkar Klose. Danny, who you got?
I'm going to go Stephens. Yeah.
Okay. Now this one could be a bit more difficult for you to talk about, Paul, if you're not familiar like me with Drakkar Klose, but we'll ask anyway.
Yeah, I've seen Drakkar Klose a few times, and he likes to stand and bang like Jeremy Stephens. So I think this is going to be absolutely explosive, because I don't see either one of those guys taking the fight to the floor. So I think both guys are going to just go out there and throw leather, So it's going to be a good one, because Drakkar Klose is super aggressive, and so is Jeremy Stephens, So yeah, it's going to be good.
Sounds like it's going to be an absolute banger, which is good. I'm going to check out Drakkar Klose now. and have a look at some of his previous fights. And the other fight I wanted to talk about was the heavyweight bout. Andre Arlovsky versus Chase Sherman. Danny, who's got this one?
Because Losky lost just recently, didn't he? But I still rate him. I think he's still got it, man. I'm going to stick with Arlovsky.
I'm going to go with Chase Sherman. Let's go with opposites, just for the competition side of it. And then our general overview of the fight from Paul Sutherland.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, that one, because I think Chase Sherman is this his second time in the UFC, because he was in there first. Yeah, he was in there first. I think he left and then he come back because he was the bare knuckle champion, wasn't he, or something over in America? So he's a former boxer. So Chase Sherman's pretty aggressive. I can't see him taking it to the floor. Obviously, Arlovsky lost to Tom Aspinall last fight pretty quickly. Right. So it's a quick turnaround as well. So, and generally, Arlovsky doesn't tend to use his wrestling and stuff. But what he's got that veteran sort of savvy where he can slow the fight down. And he's a very good round winner as well. If you look at quite a few of his last fights, he's been beating like the young guys coming up because he's been winning the rounds and been, very active in each round. So he's a decent round winner, even though he's sort of like in the latter stage of his career. So I think that could be interesting. I think Chase Sherman's obviously got big power in his hands. Depends which Arlovsky comes out though, but yeah, that could be interesting.
Yeah, do you know what, Paul? I'm so impressed with just your general knowledge of fighters and stuff, because like we've just thrown that on you in literally like 3 minutes ago. Me and Danny are both terrible with names. We can't remember half the names of the fighters we watch.
I can't pronounce my own students' names.
And then you've given us fight analysis off the fly, and I tell you, I cannot fault you for that whatsoever. But
I'm a nerd. Right. I'm a fight nerd. All I do is just watch fights and I analyze people. I'm an absolute nerd, mate. So
absolutely love it. But interestingly, Chase Sherman was scheduled to fight Parker Porter, but Porter was removed from the event for undisclosed reasons, quite late in the day as well, and he was replaced by Andre Arlovsky. So there's going to be interesting because Arlovsky's come in on short notice, which is always a risk depending on how much of a fight camp they've been in and stuff like that. You don't know which Arlovsky's going to turn up. And Porter, who was scheduled to fight initially, had made his initial debut at UFC in August last year. He lost by a stoppage, but he had taken the fight on 9 days' notice. Then he won against Josh Parashian in November last year, and he was scheduled for this Chase Sherman fight. So that was going to be a good one. Andre Arlovsky, on his day, could beat any heavyweight. But has his day gone, Danny?
We shall see. I think he's kept himself in very, very good shape considering he's in his 40s. And I don't know, he's still capable. He's still very, very capable.
Absolutely, 100%. He's older than me, and I guarantee, he's in better shape than me, mate. I tell you that much. But yeah, that's about it. That's us, and I think we'll call it a show there. I have one more question for you, Paul. You mentioned you had hip replacement earlier. I've got to have a knee replacement at some point in the next year or so, and I was just wondering what the recovery was like, because my father-in-law had his hip replaced, and it was quite a quick turnaround from what I remember in terms of, once you've had it, they kind of get you up on your feet and stuff like that. But also, he ended up having to have his replaced because there was a problem with the joint. But what I wanted to ask basically was about the recovery, and also because my mobility is not very good anyway. I walk with a walking stick because I've had several back surgeries and fusions. What's the recovery like in a long-winded way?
Hip replacements you can either have hip resurfacing, but I had a total hip replacement.
So is that when they cut part of the
Basically,
leg away and they give you the ball joint? Is it?
yeah, basically. So I was like, for years I've been in a lot of pain, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse because obviously I had osteoarthritis of the hip. Just literally had two bones just grinding together. So the pain was really, really bad. So yeah, so when I had to see a consultant, he basically said, "Oh, if you have a hip replacement, you're probably not going to be able to do martial arts again." Blah blah blah. Give me all the spiel just for safety, I think. And had the hip replacement. I was in hospital for I think it was 4 days. They get you up on like a Zimmer frame for the first day, and then they progress you to crutches pretty quickly. So I was on crutches for I think it was about 7 weeks, and then was just doing my rehab, going to see a physio and stuff to aid my rehab. But I was literally back in my gym teaching, with one crutch after about a week. So after about a week, I was back in the gym teaching. Yeah. And then just stringently went through my rehab and stuff, and I started light grappling probably 4 months in, and then now it's 18 months since I've had it done, and I when I grapple now, I don't really feel it too much. My sort of quality of life is much better because I was literally on painkillers all the time, just to stem the pain.
Like me.
But like now, I don't take any painkillers. I can do pretty much everything that I did before. So yeah, I mean, personally, if anybody had that sort of problem, I'd recommend to have it done just to get your quality of life back, let alone anything else. Because obviously living like that when you're in pain, is not the best thing in the world. So even just walking up a set of stairs was just like so bad, and you were limping everywhere, and just walking for half a mile or something, you'd have to stop, things like that, but obviously since I've had it done, I've had a return back to the mats and training. I very rarely feel it when I'm training, So yeah, I would recommend anybody having it done if they've got that problem,
Can't fault you. I'm glad to hear that it's improved your quality of life, mate. And
Yeah,
even
certainly
more
has, yeah.
glad to say, mate, that it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join us this evening. And I really, really enjoyed listening to you talk. Like, clearly a very, very knowledgeable chap on all things martial arts and everything else. And it's just been my absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Are you on any social medias at all where people can sort of follow you or anything like that?
Yes, thank you very much, obviously, for having me on the podcast. Really enjoyed it. My social media, my Instagram is Paul Sutherland MMA, and my gym is Trojan Gloucester, or Trojan Free Fighters Gloucester, right across the board. So anybody can contact me on there, and obviously I share videos and stuff with training and things like that. So yeah, I can be reached on those.
Good stuff, Danny. As ever, mate, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a good weekend chat, and Paul, it's nice to finally sit down and talk to you properly, because like I have to say to so many guests, I see you on the circuit, don't get to talk to you much, but I've got to obviously ask you when we was at Cage Warriors, would you mind coming on to the show? And we had pictures taken together, and this guy's still in amazing shape. So I put my arm around him, I was like, Jesus, man, he's solid all over. I'm like, oh, my body ain't like that, unfortunately. I'm soft and squishy everywhere, but really great. And like Si pointed out, I knew you as an intelligent guy. I've heard many good things about you, and as a person and as a coach, and I knew you was going to be pretty special. I did give you a courtesy call, didn't I, before we come on, and said that I've been wanting to get you on for a long time. I did eavesdrop your name to Si. Said, look, we got to get Paul Sutherland on. He's going to be a pretty special guest, and it's been one of my most enjoyable ones. So thanks for your time, because it's been 2 hours that we've been on here, but I've enjoyed every minute of it. And you're always welcome to come back on as well, Paul. And the breakdown has been utterly impressive, and to be able to say not only we have Paul Sutherland but a UFC judge, I mean, that's just an amazing thing for our podcast to say that we've had you on here. And good luck with the future, and like I say, come back on sometime nearer down the line, and we'll be back chatting again together in no time.
Thank you very much, guys, and I really appreciate that, Danny. Always good to see you as well on the circuit, So thank you very much.
Indeed. Guys, subscribe, youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Tell your friends, Danny Batten Fight Show. You can follow it at Danny Batten FS on Twitter and Instagram to keep up to date on the latest shows and latest guests. And everything is on Ace Podcast Nation. Just search us on social media. Until then, we bid you farewell. See you next Wednesday for another episode of the Danny Batten Fight Show with another top guest from the fight world. Guten Tag.
Defending champion, welcome, Danny Batten.